What is up, guys? My name is Sid Corrigan, and we are back on F1 24 Driver Career. This is Season 1, Episode 6 for the Canadian Grand Prix. Coming up. So, heading into Canada off a very successful weekend at Imola, where we scored our first ever podium and gave Haas their first ever podium in their 8-year existence. So the team are thrilled right now, as we have a new rival in Logan Sargent, and it'll be based on ratings. So I'll keep track of that over the next several races for you guys, but more importantly is a rivalry with Hulkenberg for recognition within the team, as it's time to set our goals for the specialists this weekend. And Phil wants us to drive over 95 miles in the race weekend, which should be very easy to do. And Deborah wants us to test some high-speed components. She wants us over 170 for 30 total seconds over the entire weekend, which with the long straights of Canada, shouldn't be difficult to accomplish. We head over to Paolo, and he has very little confidence in our driving apparently, because he wants us to incur no more than 3 penalties in the race weekend. Hopefully we don't incur any penalties in the race weekend, but thank you for your high standards, Paolo. And then we head over to Sue, who just looks like we're bothering her at all times. And she's like, just complete a lap in 2 different sessions. That's all I ask. Qualifying practice, she doesn't care, just 2 different sessions. We'll head over and look at some upgrades, see if anything's affordable for us. And we don't have much in the way of resource points at the moment. We are waiting on that beam wing, the rear downforce that we rushed. I think we chose that last week at Imola, trying to get it in time for Canada. And Hulkenberg has a couple of reliability upgrades. The gearbox durability is successful, as is the internal combustion engine upgrade.
Okay, all the new parts have been fabricated and we're going to have them with us for the next Grand Prix.
So some durability upgrades that'll help save us for some penalties later in the year. Up next is the beam wing, and we got it! Nice! Our rushed rear downforce upgrade was a success. So we'll have some nice upgrades heading into Canada. The development of the car is coming along nicely, slowly, but nicely. Let's head to the race weekend. Oh, and it looks like we have some weather on the horizon. Rain in qualifying, rain in the race. An overview of our finished upgrades, the rear downforce and durability upgrades. So we look at the development chart. Red Bull do bring an upgrade, but McLaren brings a bigger upgrade and have drawn nearly even. And the gap between the top 5 and bottom 5 is significant, but not so much that driver focus and the player can't make a huge difference. As we finish out the practice programs now, we get an experience boost for the practice sessions, and that's big because remember, our rivalry with Sargent is based on our rating, not how well we do in the races. I also wanted to give an overview of where we were on our components. We are on the 3rd column on the ICE and in the 2nd column on most of the other components. So let's head in to qualifying.
Welcome back, everybody. We're here in Canada at the wonderful Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Who's going to come out fastest of all in the next hour? Yes, it's time for qualifying.
And more on those components. We are going to have to pick a race later in the season where we can take some grid penalties and renew our components.
Standing by.
Hopefully at a track where we can overtake. More on that later. As now it's time to worry about getting a good time in and getting into Q2. And this is our final run in the first qualifying session. We're currently sitting 14th, but we didn't do a very good lap the first time. We should be able to improve massively. We go through the downhill chicane, head through turn 5 towards the turn 6 and 7 chicane. You gotta take the perfect amount of curb in order to get a good exit angle. And now towards the trickiest chicane on the entire circuit, in my opinion. The turns 8 and 9, is if you hit that curb wrong, it'll spit you out into the wall. Like George Russell in 2023 in real life. Down towards the hairpin, we have a little bit of a lockup, but we get it rotated pretty well. And apparently we're purple through Sector 2, although there are quite a few drivers still to put a lap in. Canada is one of my favorite tracks on the F1 calendar, both in real life and to drive in the game. As we go through the chicane, get near the wall of champions, nearly half a second up, and that puts us up to 4th. Let's see where we end up. So we make it through Q1 in 7th. Verstappen tops the session, followed by Norris and Perez. The Aston Martin's looking pretty good there in 4th and 5th. Ricardo, Hulkenberg, Zhou, Bottas, and Sargent are all eliminated in the first leg of qualifying, as our teammate continues to struggle with the balance of the car.
Check's complete. Everyone be aware, we've got a car leaving the garage.
So hopefully our teammate can recover from his bad qualifying and move forward. This is a track I think our car is suited for, as we tend to struggle with longer corners, as our aero and chassis are probably our weakest points on this car. And there's a lot of long straights on this track where we can maximize that Ferrari engine we have in the back. This is actually our first run of Q2, and it ends up being our best run of the session, which isn't saying much as we struggled a little bit on this session to get it dialed in. We have a little bit of a lockup into that 8-9 chicane and run a little bit deep. I had to wait longer than I wanted to get back on throttle. Just being careful over that curb. And then we had a really slow minimum speed through the hairpin. So as you can tell, we're struggling a little bit on this run, as we're running out of battery down the casino straight. And now through the final chicane, we're not chucking it through with enough confidence quite yet. And it puts us into first for the moment, but
We've only got 2 laps of fuel left.
by the end of the session, we just squeaked through into Q3, edging out Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin by less than a tenth. And we were quite lucky there, because I think he was capable of putting in a much better time than that. So we'll take advantage of our good fortune here. We're heading out very early in Q3 as the rain has started to fall, and the rain is only predicted to get heavier as the session goes on. So if we can get a good time in early, we might be able to solidify a place higher up the grid, as the track's only going to deteriorate from here. As you can tell, it's already very slippery as we're sliding around on the rear end. This is one of the things that makes this one of my favorite tracks of the season in F1, is there's usually some crazy weather on the St. Lawrence River to spice up the race. As we run deep into the 8-9 chicane again, I still haven't quite found my braking point for that yet. Through the hairpin, we have a big lockup, but we managed to roll the car through as we head onto the casino straight, one of the places where we can maximize that Ferrari engine. We're going to try using hot lap mode to keep as much battery as we can. We chuck it through the final chicane up to the wall of champions. I was a little bit cautious through the chicane, as I didn't want to invalidate, or worse,
Okay, just 2 laps of fuel remaining now.
crash, because I don't think the track's going to be good enough for another lap.
With qualifying complete, all that remains now is the main event. We'll be live and uninterrupted for the Grand Prix tomorrow, so make sure you join us then.
And the track just deteriorated, and no one was able to put in another lap. So we're able to grab 4th. So that's going to boost our rating quite a lot. Yeah, nice boost to the pace there. That'll help us in our battle with Logan Sargent. As we take a look at the weather, looks like there's just going to be some rain at the end. Let's head to the grid.
Here in Montreal, lights out is quickly approaching on this artificial island originally built for the World Fair in 1967. Now it's used for a World's Fair of a different kind, ever since Formula One first arrived here. we're back in Montreal for the Canadian Grand Prix. With top speeds of around 210 miles per hour heading into the overtaking opportunity of turn 13, the 2.7 miles of the circuit Gilles Villeneuve are some of the quickest on the Formula One calendar. There are 14 corners in total, with 60% of the lap taken at full throttle, and average speeds clock in at about 130 miles per hour. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks like for today's race. Lando Norris put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he'll start from pole position. And Oscar Piastri completes the front row. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Verstappen, a Haas, Fernando Alonso, Perez, Leclerc, Sainz, Hamilton, Russell, Stroll, Tsunoda, Ocon, Albon, Gasly, Hulkenberg, Joe, Bottas, Sargent, and Daniel Ricciardo fills the last spot on the grid. And with lights out just moments away, it's time to go down to the track.
We get ready for the formation lap. We decided to go on the medium hard strategy. There was a two-stop option, and if we had a new set of softs.
Clutch bite is good, gearbox is responding normally. Make sure to warm up the tyres and brakes. Warm the tyres and brakes throughout the lap, please.
I would have started on the softs and went with the two-stop strategy, but because we made Q3, we didn't have a new set of softs. Also notable at the start of this race is the McLaren lockout of the front row. Norris on pole, Piastri in second.
Okay, that's not an ideal placement in your grid slot. You're going to need a good launch at the race start.
And my dumbass gets fourth.
Keep an eye on the
and
lights.
then overshoots the box.
Will begin as soon as the grid is formed. Be ready with the clutch.
And the 5 red lights. The Canadian Grand Prix is underway. And we get a very good launch, pulling up right beside Verstappen into the first corner. Verstappen with the inside line, but we're going to dive back up the inside of the second corner. But Verstappen's able to hold it around the outside. As we switch to the racing line, Verstappen has a bit of a lockup in turn 3 as we dive down the inside in the downhill chicane, and we are through up into third. And Piastri got past Norris to take the lead of the race. And just behind us, Verstappen has a huge lockup into turn 6, and he drops all the way back to 7th. So some kind of brake issues for the Red Bull, as he's had 2 lockups early in the race, as Ricciardo makes a huge dive into the hairpin. That's like a player-style dive bomb. What a move by Ricciardo. And a lap later, we have been able to stay in the DRS of the McLarens, as Alonso closes in on us from 4th, having taken that spot from Verstappen. And there's a yellow flag, and Piastri is slow. What happened to Piastri from the lead of the race? And that promotes us up to second. So let's see if we can tell what happened to Piastri in the lead McLaren as he comes through the final chicane to the wall of champions. He just peels off to the side with some sort of mechanical issue. Oh, that is bad luck for Piastri and McLaren, as Piastri is now officially out of the race, promoting its teammate Norris into the lead.
Still looking good.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. I hope the tire condition's still looking good. It's only lap 3. I'm not that bad with tire management. We have been able to hang in the DRS of Norris, but Alonso in that Aston Martin behind us is looking absolutely rapid. And he's going to go for a move into the hairpin. He forced us to go defensive, and now we're going to have to take a really tight line in the hairpin. I think his strategy is to get us out of the DRS of Norris.
Information on Verstappen. They seem to have an issue.
Oh, and Verstappen's got a mechanical issue. Maybe to have to do with his brakes. That's why he's having so many problems. As Alonso tries to force his way through into that final chicane, I think he made a little bit of contact with the rear of our car. As Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari is all over the back of Verstappen, who has that car issue. And it looks like Sainz is getting impatient to get through the Red Bull. He's tucked up right behind Verstappen into the hairpin, and Sainz loses the back end and spins it. And Russell slams into him. He had nowhere to go. And Hamilton runs into him, and now we have a huge concertina
Safety car, no overtaking.
of cars crashed into each other.
Delta number positive as we form up.
Oh, and they've red flagged it. Probably a good call, as that was a huge incident.
Change our strategy for the rest of the Grand Prix if we want to.
And we're going to go on to the hards until the end of the race. I think that's probably the best strategy. And on the restart, the 5 red lights. The Canadian Grand Prix is underway as we get a really bad start. A lot of wheel spin off the start, and Alonso dives up the inside. We're going to try to go around the outside of turn 1, so we have the inside of turn 2, but Alonso cuts across very aggressively, and we make a little bit of contact with the back of the Aston Martin.
Okay to use your overtake button.
Oh, is it, Mark? Thank you. It's not like we just restarted or anything, is it? So now we've been dropped down to 3rd, and I'm already not liking the grip of the hards versus what we had on the mediums. It could be a tire temp issue, but we have to do everything we can to stay in Alonso's DRS now. Russell side by side with Verstappen at the end of lap 6. Russell dives up the inside of the Red Bull into the first corner. Verstappen has the inside line, but it looks like Russell's going to be able to finish off the move around the outside. We've been able to hold on to the back of Alonso, but we've had to use a lot of battery to do it, as he's looked like the fastest car since the restart after the red flag, as he's nearly caught up to the back of Norris and the McLaren.
So we're expecting rain in about 10 to 15 minutes.
A couple laps later, we've lost the DRS to Alonso, leaving us vulnerable to Perez, who dives up the inside and moves up into 3rd place, dropping us to 4th. And in a strange reversal of Imola, we are having trouble finding pace on these hards, as Leclerc challenges us into the hairpin. We have the inside line. Leclerc's going to try the up and under, but he decides to tuck back in behind and attack us down the casino straight, as we've been unable to save much battery. We're going to use what we can with the DRS side by side with Leclerc into the final chicane. And we are able to hold on to 4th, but when we were on the mediums, we were looking forward and attacking, and since we've switched to the hards, it's been all looking backwards and defending. Verstappen finds himself under pressure now from Russell down the casino straight, and Verstappen locks up, nearly going down the pit lane. And his brake issues continue, as he's just gonna jump over the sausage curb and rejoin at the back of the field.
The track is clear.
As we challenge Perez up the inside of the first corner. We run a little bit wide out of the second corner, giving him a sniff of coming back, but now I have to try to break the DRS to Perez. Otherwise he's gonna come right back at us, either this lap or the next one. So I'm gonna use a lot of battery.
Okay, so gap to the car ahead, 3.0 seconds.
We lock up and run a little bit deep into the turn 6 and 7 chicane, and then have a snap on the exit. And as predicted, Perez comes back through down the casino straight, showing the power of DRS around Canada. And the leaders of Norris and Alonso have pulled a nearly 4-second gap because of all the battling between myself and Perez over 3rd and 4th. As we tuck into Perez's slipstream again, we're gonna go up the inside into the final chicane, and then use the DRS and a lot of battery to try to break the DRS on lap 14.
Remember, we need to get to the end of the race on these tires.
If we want to stay ahead of the Red Bull, now's our chance to break the DRS. We rejoin a couple laps later. We were able to break the DRS to Perez and maintain 3rd. As Sainz locks up and Hamilton gets through up into 6th. It seems like everybody calmed down and went into a tire saving mode, realizing that we all had very long stints to go on these hards. Once I was able to break the DRS
Increasing our gap on the car behind by around a second
to
a lap.
Perez, he and Leclerc battled, And now we've opened up a nearly 4-second gap to the Red Bull. We're in a bit of a no man's land. 4 seconds ahead of Perez and 4 seconds behind Alonso. But we are on the podium. It's exactly where we want to be. And when will the rain come?
No tire concerns at the moment, just focus on the
Or
driving.
will the rain come at all? Right now, I'd prefer to stay dry, and we could just maintain that gap to Perez or Leclerc, work on tire saving, and bring home the podium. It's just ahead of us. The battle for the lead is heating up as Alonso tries to go around the outside of Norris, down the casino straight. And he is through the Aston Martin, up into first. And hopefully they'll keep battling and bring me back into this fight, as we have a yellow flag behind. And it's Russell. The Mercedes is out. And he'll have retired from, I believe, 8th place, bringing our teammate even closer to the points. Let's check on what happened to Russell. He's right on the back of his teammate through the turn 6 and 7 chicane. About to get DRS, heading towards the bridge. And right there, he's pulling off to the side. And he cuts the chicane and nearly hits Stroll as Stroll went through the chicane. And it does move our teammate up into 11th. If he can nick a spot from Tsunoda, he can grab a point. And we have been able to maintain that 4-second gap.
Pace is strong, but be aware, these tyres need to go the distance.
To Leclerc, even with the rears, approaching 25% wear, with Canada being a very rear-limited circuit. And the first drops of rain have started to fall as we head towards turn 5. The rain has arrived. Will it get wet enough to have to pit for intermediates? And when will that crossover be? And out of the hairpin, Alonso and Norris are side by side. With Alonso trying to retake the lead. The Aston Martin has the DRS right now. But with the rain starting to fall, how soon until they disable the DRS because of slick conditions? So we head towards the hairpin on lap 24. Our lead over Leclerc has diminished to only 2.5 seconds, which means we are struggling for grip in these damp conditions, a lot worse than any of the other drivers at the moment. And Canada is a track where I've had pretty good pace in the past at, but we haven't had much running in damp conditions. Oh, with a big snap of oversteer. Nearly lose the car, and that's going to bring Leclerc even closer as the curbs are getting wetter and wetter. But to be fast, you have to take the curbs at Canada, as Hulkenberg is challenging Tsunoda down the casino straight for that final point position, and Tsunoda locks up. He goes halfway down the pit lane, and then rejoins unsafely. Albon has to take evasive action and runs into the wall, losing part of his front wing, moving our teammate up to 9th. And now Tsunoda is trying to attack Albon into the first corner, and the Williams garage will be screaming for a penalty on Tsunoda for the unsafe rejoin. And on lap 26, our advantage over Leclerc has dwindled down to about 1.5 seconds.
Okay, even though we're seeing cars start to struggle in these conditions, if we pit for inters now, we're going to be too slow and we'll burn them out. Make the best of it for the time.
So Marc's telling us we're not at the crossover yet, but he's not on the road. We are sliding and slithering all over the place out here, really struggling. And our dream of another podium is seemingly going down the drain. As later that lap, Leclerc has caught us. Perez, Sainz, and Hamilton are all right behind him as well. And as we head towards the final chicane, Leclerc pushes us off the podium. And we're going to have to make a call here, whether we're going to go on the intermediates at the end of this lap, or try to defend on these hards.
Okay, we lost the position. Trying to keep focus.
If it keeps raining until the end of the race, stopping for the inners will be a good decision on our part, I think. But if it stops raining, or the rain lightens up, and we're caught out on the inners, that'll be race over for us. I think, Based on the pace we're showing and the fact that Leclerc
Use overtake, use overtake.
eliminated a 4-second gap over the course of just a couple laps, I think we have to gamble. Oh, we have a big tank slapper on the exit of turn 7. We very nearly lost the car again. And that right there is what made my decision for me that it was time to gamble on the intermediates. As we head down the casino straight, Perez is going to go down the inside.
This lap then, come into the pits at the end of this lap.
And we are coming into the pits to fit the intermediate tires. This will either be a 500 IQ move or a 50 IQ move. It's a huge gamble either way, as we're overriding the team. Marc doesn't think we've hit the crossover yet. I think we have. But if we want to make this team ours, we have to show them.
Okay, stay clear of the white line on the exit. We'll receive a penalty for dangerous driving if you cross onto the track.
That we can make the tough decisions. As we come out in 10th, 3 seconds back of Sonoda, and about 5 seconds back of our teammate. We're going to find out very quickly if we made the right decision. And Verstappen's tough race continues. He's chasing Albon for 11th, and he locks up and slides deep on the entrance to turn 6, and then clatters into Ricciardo, rejoining the track. As Ricciardo and Verstappen are side by side in the battle for 14th. It's not where the championship leader thought he would be at this point in the race. He does overtake Ricciardo to maintain 13th, and with 7 laps to go, we've caught the back of Sonoda heading into the first corner. We're able to make a big dive up the inside. We have so much more grip on these intermediates. As we head towards turn 2, we're nearly within a second of our teammate in 9th.
Good job, nice overtake.
And we're able to carry quite a bit more speed than our teammate is through the corners. Heading into the turn 6 and 7 chicane. He parks it right on the apex. It's going to be a traction battle on the exit of turn 7. And we're going to blow right past Hulkenberg. Up into 8th. And now it's time to chase down Stroll in that Aston Martin for 7th. And at the front of the field, Alonso continues on, but Norris peels off into the pits, and McLaren thinks the crossover's here. They're going for the intermediates as well.
DRS has been disabled by the stewards. DRS will be offline. Wait for further updates.
And Norris, who is in second place,
2.4 seconds.
Let's see where he comes out. And Norris filters out just ahead of us, about 1.5 seconds ahead. So the decision for us to go into the intermediates early has given us a huge undercut on the McLaren. None of the other drivers in the top 6 have decided to come in yet, as conditions are getting trickier and trickier. And Ricciardo spins it on the curb of turn 6. And the cars behind him narrowly avoid contact. But that V-carb is facing the wrong direction. And as we start lap 31, Stroll's 8-second advantage has disappeared in 2 laps as we move up into 7th with a nifty move up the inside of the Aston Martin. As Norris is chasing down Hamilton. Hamilton is still on the slicks. And Norris breezes by the Mercedes. And the cars that have stayed out have been completely caught out by those of us who have come in for the intermediate tires. As Norris cuts his way through Sainz now and moves up into 4th. Sainz is trying to fight it, but Norris just has so much more grip.
No need to worry about the tyre condition for now. Everything's looking good.
And as it turns out, coming in for the intermediate tires was a 500 IQ move. As we blast our way past Hamilton up into 6th, we're trying to line up a move on Sainz in the Ferrari for 5th. But he's still got some good straight line speed, so we're gonna have to wait till the final chicane. The Sainz is so slow into that final chicane. We make contact with the back of the Ferrari and have a big snap of oversteer, but we managed to keep our foot in and line up a move into the first corner. and make a big dive up the inside of the Ferrari. These guys on slicks just have no grip. Going through the corners.
Nico's coming in for his stop now.
As we line up a move on Perez and make our way through the Red Bull. And we run into the back of Leclerc. As he had been battling with Norris, the speed differential in the corners between the intermediates and the slicks is just insanely different. As we make our way through Leclerc and we fought our way back to where we were, back onto the podium. And now Norris and I both have free air to try to chase down the Aston Martin of Alonso. And it only takes Norris one lap to eliminate a 6-second gap to Alonso, as Norris is skating back and forth, trying to get past the much slower Aston Martin. And Norris is through up into the lead, as you can see how wet it is out there. And we are over the back of Alonso as well. Heading into the turn 6-7 chicane. We climb the curb of turn 6. And by the exit of turn 7, we are clear of the Aston Martin. Up into second. And these guys on slicks are just stubbornly trying to make it until the end of the race, as our teammate who has pitted for intermediates has already caught the back of the second Aston Martin, who has not pitted for intermediates, and our teammate is able to fly past the Aston Martin and improve up into 8th, proving that we are well past the crossover, and those of us who decided to make a pit stop made absolutely the correct choice.
Okay, mate, I'm afraid we didn't quite get what we needed there, but let's not worry about it. Get your head down now, chin up, and let's focus right until the checkered flag. Okay, mate, this is the final lap of the race, the final lap.
So we failed our goal of overtaking Norris by the final lap. Marc wanted us to go for the win, but that McLaren is still a better car than us at this point in the season. But it makes you think, what might have been if Norris and McLaren had decided to pit just one lap later? We might have found ourselves up into the lead, as our teammate nearly loses the car, pulling out the slipstream for a move on Sainz. The Ferrari is still on the slicks. Can Hulkenberg work his way up into 7th? Sainz moves to block him off, and Hulkenberg fishtails around looking for the traction to get through. But Hulkenberg dives up the inside of the chicane onto the bridge, and Hulkenberg is recovered up into 7th after stopping very late for those intermediates. As we head down the casino straight one final time, once more through the chicane, we're gonna watch Lando Norris and the McLaren win the Canadian Grand Prix as we come through for second place and another podium.
For another magnificent Canadian Grand Prix, and they've hung on to take a sublime victory here today.
And they led every single lap of the race. It was a light to flag victory, and that is total dominance.
Our winning drivers are on their way to the podium right now. It's been a fantastic race for McLaren, that's for sure. And no doubt, they'll be celebrating tonight.
So I'm so stoked we got another podium. And then it was a 500 IQ decision to come in for those intermediates. But I'm a touch disappointed, wondering what might have been. So Lando takes the win and the big 25 points. We got second and fastest lap, and our teammate was able to pull his best result of the season, finishing up in 6th. And Alonso, who decided to stay out and not come in for the intermediates, dropped from the lead all the way down to 5th. And in the drivers, Max still has a 37-point lead over Alonso, and Perez in the second Red Bull is 41 back. In the constructors, Red Bull lead Ferrari by 28, and we find ourselves still in 6th, 18 back of Aston Martin. As we score our first accolade of championship points, that'll be a nice boost to our experience. And we've pulled further ahead in our rivalry with Lewis Hamilton, making the right strategy call today helped us immensely in this rivalry. And we're 1 rating point away from finishing off our rivalry with Logan Sargent. And our rating picks up a huge boost from that podium and the pace we showed in Canada all weekend. Pushing us to a 71 overall rating so far. And we're only 2 points back in recognition from overtaking Hulkenberg and making Haas our team. We also managed to accomplish all of our specialist goals this weekend. Anyway, guys, that's all I have for this week. I'll see you next week when we head to Spain. Goodbye.